Hey guys, Mike the Cop. We are going to get right into it today as a new situation is coming to us about use of force out of Los Angeles. It has got keyboard warriors and Facebook attorneys taking up the cause.
I got you. Yeah, I will defend my brothers. I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite. Bring it on. It's time to fight.
On January 22nd, 2018, on a train ran by Metro Transit Authority in Los Angeles, an 18-year-old female, Bethany Neva, let's just call her Bethany, had been asked to comply with the code of conduct when traveling on the train of not putting your feet on the seats. And after refusing to do so, after refusing to comply with the request from an officer aboard the train, she was subsequently arrested. So let's take a look at the video that was taken by a bystander and ultimately posted on Facebook, in which I will put the link in the description to the full video below.
You don't get a chance to, you don't get the right to come Fine, you can deal with it once we're off. Doesn't matter, you're getting off the train right now. I already told you what to do and you disobeyed me. You're getting off the train. Come on. There you are. Oh my God. Really? Come on, stand up. Really? Stand up. Stand up.
You are not allowed
Stand
to
up. I can touch you all I want.
No, you're not. I paid to be on this train, asshole. Stop.
I'm an asshole.
Hey,
Grab her
really,
stuff.
you're
Grab her
making
stuff.
I can't if you're pulling out me off the train. I can't get my stuff.
You got it right
Let
there?
me go.
It's right here.
Stop. Just pay my phone's on the train.
God. Officer, please, officer, please, please stop doing this, officer. Please don't do this.
I told you what to do.
Officer, it's really not a big
Where's
deal.
the stuff?
Officer, it's really not a big deal. It was just chairs. It was just
31 FU140. Give me a backup on location. I'm at
Everything's on camera.
Westlake MacArthur Park.
We got this.
Where's her stuff at? Where's her stuff at?
Now let's fast forward a little bit further into the video where the officer's attempting to get her identification, and we start to see that the problem might not be the officer.
foot on a seat.
You know what?
She wasn't blocking anybody else from sitting down.
Everything on tape.
I was on my way to the DMV. I have to meet my mother to get my ID because I just turned 18. This is not fucking fair that you took me off the train because I had my foot there because I was comfortable like that. There is no law that tells me that I cannot sit that way because I paid to be in there.
Rules of the train.
What's the fuck are the rules of the train? Tell me the rules. Am I not allowed to give me the book? Where's the book?
I paid for this seat. Okay, yes, you did. And that implies a consent and an agreement to follow the rules of that transportation. You see, it's not the Bethany train. It's a train operated by the Metro Transit Authority, who then uses local and regional law enforcement officers and security officers to enforce the code of conduct that they have established. The whole idea is that the entire experience would be good for all customers because the conduct is enforced so that there is a certain level of expectation of behavior on the train. If you want to see the whole document, I think it's like 28 pages, it's a PDF, explains all the code of conduct, it's in the description. Fast forwarding a little bit more to the culmination of these events, we find Bethany getting arrested and another female getting arrested who had interjected herself into the situation unwantedly.
I'm not getting on the train and putting my backpack on. God.
Take her into custody. Take her into custody. Where's the other guy?
Doesn't need to go into custody. This is an unfair.
Your partner? Take her into custody.
You don't need to take me to
I'm going to jail.
For her foot? Oh my God.
Get off of me.
This is ridiculous.
Off of me. This is bullshit. Because this is crap. She has her hat. She has
She wasn't suggesting anybody from sitting.
This is racism. This is what we are. 2018, motherfuckers like this want to just try and act like they can do whatever the fuck they want. Fuck you guys.
She seems lovely and reasonable. Here's the thing, guys. The use of force against someone who is a non-compliant or an unwilling subject, it never looks good, especially to the casual or uninformed observer, and certainly not to someone who already has this preconceived notion that they are anti-police or has an axe to grind for some reason, legitimate or not, against law enforcement. And I want to stress that this seems to be a problem that's a perception issue in that casual and uninformed person category, particularly on social media, when it's easily solvable by being an engaged and informed citizen. After all, that's what you should be. You're part of employing these law enforcement officers and establishing the laws through involvement in your community, and you should have an interest in this. But I'm, of course, preaching to the choir because here you are on Mike the Cop's channel getting informed. So good job. Gold star. Now, Mike, what is your take on this? That's the question I've gotten throughout this week since this has happened. So let me give you 3 different little areas of response. First, with regard to the actual use of force, unless there's some type of evidence before this video begins or some type of evidence after she's already arrested and the video ends, what I see on this video as far as the use of force goes was absolutely and completely entirely justified. He used the minimum amount of force necessary to effect this arrest in the safest way possible given the circumstances of the environment. No one was struck, no one was thrown, no one was tased, no one was sprayed, no one was shot, thank goodness. After all, don't we want officers to use the minimum amount of force necessary to effect an arrest? She was completely uninjured. There was honestly no unnecessary violence in her dragging her arm, or her arm being dragged by the officer. It's not like her shoulder was out of socket. He wasn't banging her against the pole that she's holding on to for dear life to try to avoid it complying with the lawful order. Really, what was the issue with the use of force? We can see later on she's completely fine, and maybe it's just her ego bruised because she had refused to comply with a common sense request from the officer in compliance with that code of conduct, and this whole thing was avoidable. Secondly, this should be a lesson in personal responsibility. Lots of people are assuming the worst about the cop, of course, because again, there's people with axes to grind. They've chosen their tribe. Nothing you say, no matter how common sense, no matter how reasonable, no matter how factual, they're gonna ignore it anyway. People on the top comments in this video saying things like, notice how this prick keeps turning back to the camera. The sad excuse for a cop was waiting for them to stop filming to do some shady shit. Come on, man. You're making these random assumptions based on what I don't know. We don't see that at all. Perhaps, like we see in the video, he asks for them to give him some space. An officer who's by himself trying to make an arrest doesn't want a crowd of people pushing in on his person. Amy says, what a weak and pathetic little man. A real policeman de-escalates and doesn't wrench a tiny girl around by the arm because she didn't take her foot off of a bench. He was the aggressor and not in control of the situation at all. Listen, this is not about what the rule is. You don't have to like it. This is about the rule in general and authority enforcing that in general and how to conduct yourself as a person, a reasonable person. And Kristen says, effing scumbag. Thank you for those who documented and helped to protect a minor for doing nothing wrong. Wait a second. She's 18. So I think your uninformed opinion isn't going to get very far. And it gets more ugly from there. Enjoy it. However, the cop was just doing what it is that he is expected to do as a law enforcement officer and what is expected of the partnership that exists between the Los Angeles Police Department and the MTA. Here we have an 18-year-old girl being disrespectful to her fellow passengers who then decides to be disrespectful to authority in general and to this particular sergeant. She caused the situation. She escalated the situation. A lot of people may be inclined to think, why do we have this whole big problem over someone putting a foot on a seat on a train? I would bet a paycheck that the sergeant involved in this asked himself the very same question, like, why will this girl not just act like a normal person over a rule about putting your feet on a bench? That is a reasonable question. So that's a great point, but we have to look at it from an angle of objectivity, not an angle of insult because somebody broke a rule and they got in trouble for it. How Bethany comes out looking like a victim or some type of social justice hero and standing up for herself while she's acting like a toddler who didn't get a sucker at the bank drive-thru is beyond me. The officer, bottom line, didn't make the rule. He didn't escalate the situation. And so let's put the responsibility where it lies. I mean, here's an idea.
Stop breaking the law, asshole!
Finally, I find the response from the CEO of MTA interesting. He first stated that he was extremely disappointed and that our riders deserve better. We want the metro system to be a safe environment for everyone. I expect more from our law enforcement partners. You see, that's kind of funny. I would think you would expect your law enforcement officers to do their jobs. With all due respect, sir, if you don't like the rules that the Metro Transit Authority established, maybe you could change them if you don't like them. But let's be honest about what this is. This is apparently an attempt to save face amidst poor perception. Mr. Washington would then later seemingly backpedal from throwing these officers under the bus, or train as it were in this case, when he said, "We want our customer code of conduct rules enforced, do you? But I'm disappointed at the way the situation escalated." Again, I bet the sergeant would agree with that. "As a 24-year retired U.S. Army veteran, I understand and respect our police officers and their day-to-day duty in working to keep our system safe and secure. They encounter hundreds of conduct issues each day, and some of them are faced with very difficult situations. But my hope is that we work to de-escalate situations as much as possible." What I'm hearing, Mr. Washington, is that hundreds of misconduct situations happen regularly on your train, and officers handle them with no problems, and it just didn't end up on some kind of video that makes you look bad, and now all of a sudden you have a problem when they do the job that they so regularly often do that you're commending them for. Mr. Washington, thank you for your service to our community and for the clarification. However, I would refer back to my earlier statements about responsibility and escalation and where that responsibility squarely falls on the person and persons who were arrested. I think the sergeant involved in this would definitely agree that he was disappointed in the way the situation escalated as well. I think anyone with a sense of manners, professionalism, and respect would be appalled at how that young lady conducted herself. I hope that her mother, who she was going to meet at the DMV to get her ID, would be ashamed at how her daughter behaved. It was quite frankly embarrassing. And sir, to be honest with you, you should be ashamed of the fact that you don't have the fortitude to call a situation what it is. You're not standing up for your workers. You're not standing up for those who have made the code of conduct, and you're not standing up for those who you are in partnership, asking them to risk themselves to enforce those codes. Rather, you are sitting from a position of comfort and not as one who's actually having to deal with those situations that you say that they regularly deal with well. What's your take on this, guys? Ask your questions, leave your comments, interact below. I will hop in there as I can. I will be traveling to Columbus. We're going to be doing a helicopter tour video of a police helicopter. We're going to be doing a travel vlog, going to the Columbus Crew Stadium. Good times to be had by all, and we'll be sharing it with you guys. So thank you so much for your support. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share it somewhere. Hit the notification so that you never miss anything. Good day.